Happy New Year and thank you for tuning in. We are kicking off this episode with my friend Amanda, who is a professional ballet dancer with more than 15 years of experience. She will be talking about techniques, training, and also covering a bit about the history of ballet. Feel free to crack up the speed to 1.5x for a breezier experience. Let's dance into the beauty of ballet together. Welcome to Wanakam.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. How's your day been?
It's been good. It's all right. I'm a little ill, so I spent a lot of it sleeping.
Okay, well, right now you're drinking the Indian chai tea latte.
Absolutely. It's healing me.
That's good. Well, we're here to talk about ballet, ballerina. I'm assuming I think the same word, but which is a short form or?
Technically, it's very common to hear people say ballerina, but technically, the word ballerina is reserved for the top dancer in the company. There's usually a prima ballerina, which is what we would call it as well, and she does all the lead roles, and you know who she is, the prima ballerina, the favorite of the director or whatever. So that is technically the ballerina of the company, and then the rest of us, because I was never that, are ballet dancers, technically. But you can say ballerina and everyone knows what you mean. But technically speaking, ballet is the art form, ballerina is the top dancer, and then all the rest of us are ballet dancers. That's how it goes.
Okay, that's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember, we had this conversation a few months ago about what my perspective of ballet was, where you go on your toes and you swing around, but it's from VFX. It's all from movies. It's not actually real. Can you elaborate a bit more about how do you do that? Like, it's literally with one toe, like the pinky toe? No.
No.
It's the toe.
Yeah, it's all the toes. It depends on the people's foot. You know, people have all different foot shapes. But anyway, that's too deep. It does kind of look like VFX, but it's point shoes, which is what allows us to do that. So it's like hard ballet slippers, basically, and it's common to think that the tip of it is wood, but that's not the case. It's made of layers of canvas and glue. So the point shoes are made by people, always handmade, and it's layers of canvas and glue, and there's a wooden shank, which is like the sole of the shoe, kind of. But then the box, which is the toe part, is, when you get it, it's hard to the touch because the glue has dried, and you have to sort of use the strength of your foot to push your foot onto the top of that hard box. But the shoe helps you stay up there once you're up there. So we train from the ages of 6 until usually 12, 13, 14 to be able to get these shoes, to dance in these shoes. And the strength of your foot helps you move on to the top of the box and then back down, which is actually the hardest part. It seems like balancing for a long time is going to be difficult, or standing on there is going to be difficult, but the most technical part is coming up and down. If you can do that gracefully, then you'll be a better dancer than someone who can only stand or can only fall.
So you can't do it in your normal boots, like your Nike shoes or sports shoes, which are very foamy and fluffy, no?
No. I mean, you could if you could try, and I think some people do, but you're going to end up with injuries. The shoe is supporting a lot of the force. It has like a flat platform at the very toe, and then the strength extends up to the sides of your foot. By the time it reaches the arch of your foot, the shoe is soft, but it has a wooden shank in the bottom. Well, it's not always wood. Some of them are plastic. Some of them are flexible, hard materials. Go in the sole of the shoe, and so that allows you to articulate your foot and give some strength. But yeah, with normal shoes, it's not healthy, and certainly not possible.
Yeah. Have you watched Titanic?
I have never watched. Well, that's a lie. I've watched Titanic, but not recently.
Not recently. Okay. I watched Titanic, obviously not in English. I watched it in Tamil.
Of course. As it should be screened, of course.
Exactly. So there was a scene where Rose does, I'm assuming this is a ballet move. She's on her toes and she spins around. Do you recall that scene?
I don't recall that scene.
Okay,
Let's cite the source.
Let me just show it to you.
Let's see it. Oh, she's drinking. All right. Yeah. See, that's fake.
So we just saw the ballerina scene in Titanic.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that? Do you think that's possible to be done, or
I mean,
VFX?
It's for sure VFX.
Okay.
It's possible, and I mean, you can do that. I can do that, but it hurts. You know, like to get up onto what we call demi-point, where your toes are flat and your weight is on the ball of your foot. So like, I don't know if that explanation makes sense. Your toes are still on the floor. You're just lifting up your heel to the point where there's basically a straight line between the arch of your foot and the ball of your foot. that is super normal. And that's what you do all the time. I could hold that for ages. That's like what little girls do before they have point shoes. And even like in the morning, we don't start with point shoes on, these hard shoes. We start with flat shoes. So we do that all the time, that demi point. So that is perfectly realistic. But then once you start lifting your toes off and you're going literally to the tips of your toes, it's possible. It requires a lot of strength in your foot and it's not healthy. So that reaction of like, ow, that for sure is accurate. I could do that for like half a second and then I would also probably fall. I don't know about into the arms of Leonardo DiCaprio, but you would come down for sure. It's not a sustainable thing.
Okay. So do you go to gym, or is there specific techniques, specific exercises which is only for all ballet dancers?
Like me, well, it's different for everyone. Me personally, I like cross training with yoga and Pilates. That's just what I like to do.
What is Pilates?
Pilates is a type of body weight exercise. It's similar to yoga in that it's body weight, but it's really core focused. It was developed by, from what I understand, it was developed by a man who was trying to keep prisoners in shape, so they didn't have equipment. Developed by a man named Joseph Pilates, I believe. It's just a body weight core strengthening exercise type. But yeah, I mean, dancers are encouraged, especially at a professional level, to cross train, which is important because ballet strengthens very specific muscles and leaves a lot of muscles sort of weak. So you can end up getting injured if you're only doing ballet as you're strengthening. But on the flip side, there are some muscles that only ballet trains. So you can't be in shape for ballet without doing ballet, if that makes sense.
So like what are the main muscles you would say for ballet?
Ballet works the whole body.
Okay.
I would say one specific group of muscles that nothing else really works the way ballet does is your deep internal rotators. So there's a group of really tiny, there's 6 really, really tiny muscles deep in your gluteus, in your butt muscle.
Okay. Yeah.
And they are responsible for the external rotation of the leg. So when you're standing just a normal human being, your toes are pointing forward. When you're dancing ballet, your toes have to be pointing out to the side and your heels have to be touching. So you can do that by just jamming your foot into that position, but again, you'll end up with injuries if you're not supporting it with your muscles. So we, again, train for years and years and years of our lives to find those muscles and be able to use them to support external rotation. And then once you can get external rotation, all the movements you do are maintaining that external rotation. So maybe you could be up in the gym learning how to kick your leg up real high, but it's going to be with your toes facing forward. And as soon as you externally rotate, it's going to be a completely different set of muscles than if you are just kicking normally. And actually that external rotation allows the hip socket to open and it allows your legs to get higher. It changes the movement of the leg within the socket of the hip. So things like that, like you're not going to get that in a yoga class, you know, it's just, there are certain things, stabilizers as well, the sort of like, when you're balancing is not just a luck thing, it's a strength thing and it's a skill thing. So when you're in a balance, the muscles that you use in your deep abdomen and your core to sort of like knit your ribs together and stabilize yourself in a balance, that's pretty unique to ballet. You're not going to get that anywhere else. Or the muscles in the back along your trapezius and along your scapula that allow you to support your arms while they're moving.
When you're basically rising them up.
Yeah, I mean anything, because even when you're not using them, they have to be in one of the classical positions. So you can never just have your arms at your side in classical ballet anyway. So we support that with the muscles in our back. And counterintuitively, the way to make your arm look flowy is by engaging more muscles. Because if you were just to let your arm fall limp, it looks terrible. But if you're letting using the muscles to support the descent of the arm, it's almost like it's in water, you know? It's not, it looks easy, it looks fluid, but the more fluid it looks, the more muscles they're using. And again, developing that fluidity in the fine motor control of the muscles, only ballet trains that. So you can cross-train in order to, for example, strengthen your biceps, strengthen your internal rotation so that if you fall and you twist your leg, you have muscles to prevent yourself from breaking your ankle. things like this are good for cross training to keep the body balanced. But the ballet muscles of external rotation, of supporting the arms, of stabilization in the core, these things are not trained by anything but ballet.
Okay, that's super interesting.
There you go.
So, would you say ballet is just for girls, or is it okay? It would also be for guys, because
Of
for me in
course.
my head typically, yes, I mean I have seen a couple of your shows. I've seen a lot of men performing, but the first thing that comes in my head of ballet is basically someone wearing something in pink, white shoes, a small what do you call the thing on your hip, like something round on your hip, and then stretching a lot, which I think girls are more flexible than guys. Controversy. But still.
Controversy. You heard it here first, folks. Sendel hates men.
Yeah. So what is it? Is there like a huge difference in ballet? Can you see that there's a difference when men are performing or men are training or practicing compared to
Absolutely, absolutely. In modern classical ballet, modern being in the last few decades or so, there is a complete difference between men's ballet and women's ballet. There are steps that women do that men never do, and vice versa. Steps that men do that women never do. Of course, it's 2024. Neoclassical ballet, contemporary ballet is sort of pushing that limit where women are doing men's parts, women are partnering men are sort of wearing more effeminate costumes, men are learning to dance on point, but these are breaking all the rules. It's lovely to see, but that's a little complicated for now. The way that traditional ballet has developed in the last few decades is that men's roles are typically more athletic, they jump higher, they turn more, and they never wear point shoes. Their movements, they have specific port-de-bras, like ways to move their arms that women never do. They have specific ways to bow and specific ways to walk that are different than the way women are meant to bow and walk and move their arms. And then women, of course, have steps that men never do. Men never wear point shoes. Women only wear point shoes.
But when you mean by point shoes, you mean the shoes where you do
the CGI.
The CGI, basically,
Yeah.
where Rose does it in Titanic.
Well, she's not wearing point shoes.
She's not wearing point shoes, but the same tone, basically.
Exactly. Men only ever go up to demi-point. They never wear point shoes. They don't stand on their toes. They only stand on half point, demi-point. Women only dance in point shoes in classical ballet. There are some instances where you use flat shoes, but we're not doing any. In classical ballet, women are always in point shoes. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Cut.
Take your time.
Women are.
Drink some.
Some
tea
tea.
or water if you
Some
want.
chai. Okay, I'm cured. Back to business.
Take your time.
No, it's good. It's good. Men always do the athletic steps. They're always on demi-point, and women are always dancing in point shoes. There are like little, small, delicate steps that men will never do. They sort of run quickly like flurried feet. Men don't do these things. So there's definitely a traditional masculine and feminine roles in ballet. And generally, men and women will take the same ballet class. And at a professional level, if the combination is more geared towards women, they will give an alternate for the men and vice versa. And usually there are some exercises in a ballet class that men do and women do not. We will take the time to put our shoes on and put on our point shoes or stretch or something, and men will do these big jumps and big turns that women don't do. And vice versa. We have point class, which is specifically for women, and men don't even attend. But there's also I've touched the mic. Men's class where women don't go, because it's all jumps and turns that we never do. I don't know how to do an axel. I don't know how to do a 370. I don't know how to do a manège of like entre-six and entre-huit. Well, actually, I can do a six, but a huit I've never done.
What's a huit?
It's like jumping up in the air, and your legs, for example, you start with your right in front of your left, maybe. Changement is just one change. So you jump in the air, your right is in front, you switch your legs, and you land so that your left is in front. That's a changement. Entre-quatre it's all French. Ballet is all French. Entre-quatre is you jump up in the air and you switch 4 times with air quotes. The times are 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's out, in. So even though you're switching your legs in the air, you still end up with your right in front. So you jump up with your right and it goes out, and then your left is in front, and then it goes out and your right is in front, and then you land. So that all the way up until there, that's common for women and men to do. Then there's the entre-six, which up until recently was a men's jump. But as time is going on, women are becoming stronger and stronger and more athletic. Men are accomplishing more impressive feats, but women are catching up as well. So athletic women are more the modern age of ballet, because in the past they were sort of meant to be dainty and pretty and whatever. We'll get to that. So a six is you jump in the air and it goes out, in, out, in, out, in. So you're switching your legs 3 times. So you end up right, left, right, and you end up with your left in front. But then a huit is more right, left, right, left, right, and you end up with your left in front again, or whatever it is. And you can go up and up and up and up and up. So women at a certain point, six is more or less the end for women. Huit, up until 10, I mean, the men can do these things. Women can't. We're just not as strong. And we're not trained that way. We're trained to do little delicate things. But when ballet began, it was a court dance, and it was codified by Louis XIV, the Sun King. He loved himself, he loved the arts, he was super egotistical, and he would make these ballets, and he developed a school where people would learn to dance ballet. And that's the reason that all the steps are in French, even though a lot of it came from Italy and was fine-tuned by Russian. It was codified in France.
Basically originated in France.
The book of saying this is how you do it.
That's where the names are all French.
Exactly. I mean, it came from a lot of places. Court dancing was all over the place, but this style was put down on paper by Louis XIV in France. And so he had a school of dance, and this is where you learn to dance ballet specifically. And he made these ballets, and he educated people in ballet so that they could be a part of his shows, but he was always the lead. So it was a very masculine-dominated art form. There was a time that women did not even dance ballet. And then as time went on, women were included, but men were still always the forefront of ballet. They were the stars because, I mean, the patriarchy, women didn't have rights. Anyway, as time went on, it became more fashionable for women to be in ballet, and eventually they were fetishized. So becoming a ballet dancer was similar to becoming a prostitute. So, yeah. There were women that they would train and they would put them on stage, and you have a full company of women, and rich men would come to watch the shows and they would say, that one. And then after the show, I won't get into details, but it was like picking out animals, But they were pretty, wearing pink dresses and delicate, and that's kind of where the stereotype comes from of this beautiful, delicate ballerina, but it was fetishized by men, and it was very disgraceful to be a dancer. And they got into it because they loved it, but they became essentially prostitutes to allow the art form to continue, to be paid for there to be interest in this art. It was not a great time to be a ballet dancer, to say the least. And there were very famous dancers who were abused by their teachers, women that would die from catching fire from their costumes. All kinds of horrible things happened to ballerinas. And then as we modernize, as we move through ballet history, the sort of what am I trying to say? Anyway, there you go. the fetish, there we go. The fetish dropped away, and it became more about the art. I mean, to a certain extent. There's still a lot of issues of sexual power abuse in the ballet world, but we won't go there. The fetish sort of dropped away, and it became more about the art, and then we're left with this image of the beautiful, delicate ballerina, who was furthered more by the Russians, who developed hard point shoes, the Russians and the Italians, kind of, and then even more by George Balanchine, who was a Russian dancer and choreographer. He moved to America, and it's said that George Balanchine taught America how to dance. So he founded the New York City Ballet, he founded the Balanchine style of dancing, and he was really precise about how he wanted his women to look. All really thin, all with really big feet, with really long lines and long necks, and he married a lot of his prima ballerinas, and he wouldn't let them eat more than a few almonds a day. He controlled what they could and could not say, so it was very clearly power abuse, but he created beautiful dancers and beautiful works, and his ballets are still performed all over today. They're some of the most prestigious to perform. So he was a great artist, but he shaped the culture of ballet, and the sort of desire for skinny dancers, a lot of it came from him. This need to be super thin and dainty and delicate, while his dancers were active and athletic, so it was a difficult balance. A lot of them did cocaine.
Wow.
But now, in the 21st century, we're left with this image of thin, beautiful ballerinas wearing pink tutus and point shoes and spinning on one leg in the sort of zeitgeist. But the reality is that women are becoming more and more athletic and taking more and more power back and sort of bringing their voice to a very female-dominated industry more and more. There's still the issue, though, of a super, super, super saturation of women versus men. Way, way, way more women are ballet dancers, want to be ballet dancers, than there are men. And all the auditions I've done, there's like 50, 60, 70 women in the room for like 5 guys. And 9 times out of 10, they need the male spot before they need the women's spot. I've been in auditions where we did a whole entire audition, and then the director said, "Thank you, woman number 1, 6, and 10, you can stay. All 50 of the rest of you, thank you, you can go home. And I'm going to keep all the guys, all 10 of them, because they needed a man in their company. And all the 50 women, myself included, that were there, that traveled to come to this audition got cut because they didn't need us. Except for maybe those 3 girls that were exceptional, incredible, and even then they said, we'll keep you in mind. But they didn't give them a contract because they didn't need any women, they needed the men. So it's way easier for men to get a job, for men to have good contracts. There's so much less competition in this world. But they're still necessary, and they're still incredible dancers, of course. So more women dance because of the fetish and George Balanchine and the history of ballet. Women are sort of the icon of the ballet performance. But historically, men founded it, and in modern times, men are still very strong dancers that are needed in every company.
I had zero idea about the history of ballet. Huh?
Yeah, it's a long story.
It's a long one, yeah.
I'm skipping a lot.
This episode is sponsored by Amma's Kitchen, the best home-cooked Indian food in Barcelona. Ballet, it's not just a dance, because you also enact and perform specific acts, like a certain play, I can say. So is it just play, or is it also dance, or is it a combination of both? Or how does it work?
It's sort of a combination of both. It's an art form, it's a style of dance that you learn from young. And so ballet class in the morning is just the steps, is the basic steps. You practice tandi, you practice plie, you practice dégagé, and all the way up to pirouette, where you're spinning around, you practice jumps. So you have this sort of repertoire of movements that you're able to do, that you've practiced and perfected since a child. And there's a limit, there's only so many steps that are correct in ballet, so you can learn them all. Once you get to a certain age, you know them all, and you're just practicing them over and over and over again every day for years of your life. So you have this sort of repertoire, this list of movements that are acceptable in ballet. And then, when it comes to shows, choreographers will take these movements, combine them in a certain way, and give them to ballet dancers, and we perform them to tell a story, generally, in classical ballet. So these movements are what we use to show that we're happy, or scared, or sad, or whatever. And then there's a degree of a play element where people wear costumes and there are characters and they're trying to get a story across with the music as well as a massive, very important point of the story being told. But there's no words. So it's like a play where you switch the words for dance steps. And that's how the story is told.
Just say, for example, 1,000 moves in your life, and you replicate those 1,000 moves in different ways. And you form like different performance, like in different plays.
Exactly. It's like a painter only has so many colors, but they can make all different portraits from the colors they have. We only have so many steps, but we can make all different combinations from the steps that we have.
Wow.
But, again, this was sort of the way that it originated. Stories were being told. As we move into the modern age with neoclassical ballet, a lot of the modern works, and especially contemporary works, don't have an exact story. There's a ballet for The Sleeping Beauty. There's a ballet for Swan Lake. These are stories that are written down and then they were reenacted by dancers. Now we have works where the movement comes first and the audience interprets their own story. A lot of Balanchine's work had no story, and he was a pioneer for that. That was not seen or heard of a lot before the neoclassical age, before Balanchine popularized these storyless ballets. So for him, he sort of defined an era in that sense, and now that's very common, where the story is not explicitly told. Maybe the choreographer has an idea, maybe there's something that's been explained to the dancers, but it's not meant to be clear to the audience. The audience is meant to interpret whatever they understand from this show.
Okay.
So it started with stories. There still can be literal stories, but as we move into the modern age, less and less literal word-by-word stories are being told.
How do you see it in 2024? As you spoke about history and how it's moving forward, where do you see it's going, or where do you see it is right now?
I think that ballet needs to change in order to be relevant. I think that it's beautiful that we have this tradition that goes back centuries, but I think it's very easy to get stuck in a centuries-old practice. And I think that ballet runs into a lot of trouble holding on to these traditions, white-knuckling them as the world moves on without it, you know? And I think companies that are going to be successful will figure this out, and they will start doing more contemporary works. They will stop, well, hopefully we'll never lose the classics. I don't think we should stop doing the classics. But they will include new works on their repertoire. They will use pop music. I mean, Boston Ballet last few years did a work, a new choreography set to pop music with lyrics. That's like unheard of, but it was very popular, you know? Things like this that will bring in new audiences, I think we'll see more of. I think more gender neutral casting, women doing men's roles, men doing women's roles, not having women in men's roles at all. There's choreographers that are putting men and women all in the same costume, which is nice to see. You know, that's the gender divide in ballet, I think, will separate a little bit more, will dissipate a little bit. And I think that the dancers will get more and more athletic every year as they continue to do. Higher legs, bigger jumps, faster turns, quicker steps, everything we're always pushing. And the prima ballerina of today would look like an alien 50 years ago. The talent just gets better and better and better every year. Dancers get better and better. The demands get higher and higher. So we'll see more and more incredible feats in more and more modern choreographies with things that relate to the modern world more than we have in the past decades. Hopefully, I hope these things happen, because if not, I don't know how well ballet will do in the modern world.
Can we expect more of these plays to become commercial?
The snobby ballet fan in me does not want to see a ballet version of Moana, for example.
Or with Lion King.
I think that is reserved more for Broadway. No shade to musical theater. I think it's a lovely art form. I think the cheesy and the overt and the child-directed themes belong more in musicals. I think it's nice when the audience can hear the dialogue and see the singing and all these things. You know, I think that is where The Lion King lives. I think that's where the Frozen live action lives. I don't think ballet is ever going to take that into account. I think ballet is inherently a more interpretive art form because there are no words. So I don't know how well Disney movies really apply to ballet necessarily. Traditionally folklore is being told by ballet, ancient stories, even, these old stories are put into ballet because that's what they had at the time. They didn't have musicals and they didn't have Disney movies. But I don't think that there's a great transition from Disney movies into ballet. But I don't think so. I think it'll be more interpretive. I think it'll be more joyful. I think it'll be fun. I think those things have a place, but I don't think telling the story of Frozen through point shoes has a place, unless it's marketed for children and then good for you, but that's not going to go on the stage of the Paris Opera. Ballet is the worst career you can have. Unless you love it so much, don't do it.
But tell us a bit about your journey from the United States to Barcelona. How long have you been dancing for?
My whole life. As long as I can remember. I started going to classes since there's a ballet for The Sleeping Beauty, there's a ballet for Swan Lake. These are stories that are written down and then they were reenacted by dancers. It doesn't matter how much you want ballet, it matters how much ballet wants you.